Hey y'all, I'm Stir98. Welcome back to another 0K 1 vs 1. Today we have a match on the map Wanderlust between, in the west, it's Atosty with Jump Bot start, starting out with a Constable, and Engineer Commander Builder with currently Pyro blueprinted. Let's see if that sticks around. And his opponent, in the east, it's the therxyy, starting off with Cloakbots and Engineer Commander Y_Y and Reaver blueprinted. therxyy opening aggressively with a bunch of glaives, as he usually does. Making 4 glaives, then a con. I feel like that's earlier than therxyy usually starts. Earlier than therxyy usually makes a con. First glaive, getting hit by the pyro. Running away, not running in, even after it was already a dead bot. Atosty immediately sucking up that reclaim. Another glaive, moving in on the factory. Pyro is just finished. Glaive might be able to get a kill on a metal extractor. Changes targets to a wind generator, changes targets to a pyro, dies without killing anything. Third glaive coming in. Will fire on the factory. Probably won't do a whole lot. On the other side of the map, Pyro from Atosty taking down one of therxyy's metal extractors. therxyy with a nice number of glaives built up. 5 glaives, 6 glaives will be able to repel that Pyro no problem if they commit to it. However, currently they're just running into a hill. Pyro getting another kill on a metal extractor. Taking down a third metal extractor. Is finally being fired upon by the glaives, but the glaives having to run uphill, taking some burn damage. If he loses a wind generator, might lose a couple more glaives. And glaive from therxyy had the factory locked down. Pyro was finished before the glaive was able to kill it off, and did get the kill on the glaive. Constable's slow, preventing the glaive from shutting the factory down completely. therxyy working on a radar and some metal extractors. Or, well, radar first, then presumably will work on the metal extractors. Over that, Pyro from Atosty got away clean. Atosty locking down the middle metal, well, 2 of the 3. These aren't super mexes, but they're like metal extractor plus. 3.0 instead of the normal 2.0 metal per second. therxyy Duke some more harassed, however, getting cleaned up. Another pyro comes in from Atosty, however, doesn't take down anything other than 1 glaive. Going to cook a second, yes. More glaives from the therxyy moving in on Atosty's base. Both players getting lots of attacks in on the other player's base, not doing much about the other player's expansions. As I say that, therxyy taking down 2 of Atosty's metal extractors, including one of the 3.0 mexes. However, that glaive going to be cleaned up. Can just die. Yeah, die to the constable's slow beam there. Don't see glaives dying to that too often. Usually you only see it killing fleas, to the extent you see it killing anything at all. Atosty, still with 2 of the 3.0 metal extractors, is energy stalling, so working on fixing that, getting up some solars. Commander from the therxyy being fired upon by these pyros, however one of them was already damaged and goes down quickly. Other one jumps out. 1 moderator is up, however, Atosty pausing to fix his energy problem. Still unable to expand to the south. That undefended metal extractor from Atosty still staying up. Gonna have a bit of a confrontation between Constable from Atosty and Commander from therxyy, and there is no suspense as to which constructor is going to come out on top there. Lotus from therxyy in the south, not finished before a pyro comes in. taking down yet another metal extractor from therxyy. therxyy finally taking out that undefended 3.0 metal extractor. Pyro taking out the imp as it was coming in. Imp only stuns therxyy's own constable. Pyro just barely not being stunned there, and takes out, going to finish off that, not constable, conjurer. Glaive might survive? Yeah, Glaive will survive, however. therxyy starting to print out reavers. Pyro trading horribly into reavers. These two reavers are going to cause a lot of trouble. Atosty needs to get out some moderators to deal with them. But still just focused on more pyros and getting up a Lotus. Moderator from Atosty moving in on therxyy's base. Gets a slow off on that Lotus. On the other side of the map, Reavers moving towards Atosty's base. Reaver just out of therxyy's factory, shuts down all of those pyros, takes down the moderator as well, or rather the glaives accompanying the Reaver do. Commander from Atosty still up, however, and has a bunch of reclaim available to it if it can lock it down. Getting up some Lotuses so that it doesn't get overwhelmed. Glaive from therxyy, stray glaive, takes down a metal extractor. Atosty finally starting to expand down here, however, that one glaive could cause a world of problems for that. Atosty getting up a caretaker. That will give him superior constructor build power to therxyy. therxyy setting up a Stinger. Stinger not terribly effective against Pyro. Does tend to miss a lot as they're jumping in. Stardust maybe... Stardust isn't good against Moderator though, so. And Atosty does have the height advantage. So Stinger does make sense. Atosty's setting up these Lotuses, however, will just be taken down by the Stinger once it's finished. Atosty working on his own Stinger. And Atosty's economy, well, yeah, not in a terribly great spot. Pyros from Atosty jumping in on the Stinger. Will they take it down? Yes, they will. Stinger is down. There's a Knight up. There's 4 Lotuses up. Commander from Atosty not committing. Still working on that Stinger, but that Stinger isn't going to go up, I don't think. These Reavers could just take out the Commander. Factory is open, aside from now only 3 Lotuses. However, Atosty, not committing his Commander to that attack, now finds said Commander completely isolated by therxyy's forces. therxyy's Commander continuing to print out more Reavers. Atosty with some Moderators moving in. Should be able to get his Commander out of there. One Reaver will not be able to kill a more than half health Commander on its own. And therxyy with these slings, that's a big vulnerability. Atosty creating more Pyros. Pyros can overwhelm the factory. I think Atosty might have split his forces incorrectly, because the threat from the Reavers is up north. The base that is really vulnerable to raiders is down south. And yet, the Moderators that are really good against the Reavers are down south, and up north is the Pyros. Pyro failing to take down that Stinger. Might die to ground burn? Might? Is still losing health, however, ground burn won't be... Ground burn is ended. It's just afterburn that the Stinger's being affected with, and that's just worn off as well. Stinger stays up, and it's going to be healed back to full health. Moderator's moving in. Stinger not yet finished. However, Commander from Atosty, which could really be useful here, has wandered off. Working on rebuilding those metal extractors. Pyros are in, however they just used their jump. They can't jump on top of the Stinger. Stinger is finished. Pyros hesitate. Reavers from therxyy continuing to take down Constables, take down Expansion. Moderators being repelled by Knights. Attack from Atosty on therxyy's base has failed. Meanwhile, Reavers from therxyy continuing to put pressure on Atosty's base. That one does go down to the Lotus. Over this one, walking down towards Atosty's naked expansion. Nothing defending this. Economy for these two players still even, however, not for much longer if this Reaver takes down all this southern expansion. That's a lot of Pyros converging on this one Stinger. They should be able to kill it, no problem. therxyy's commander working on a second Stinger, however, is cancelled, working on a Lotus. Already has 2 more Lotuses up. Now 5 Lotuses defending that commander. From all these Pyros. Pyros utterly failed to take down that commander. Commander at more than half health. Moderators surrounded, going to be taken out by these glaives. And what army does Atosty have left? Handful of moderators weren't going to be enough to salvage Atosty's position. Atosty throwing in the towel. therxyy taking this game. Atosty ahead for a good portion of it. Had that siege on therxyy's base. Not quite a stranglehold. Would have been a stranglehold if therxyy was using any commander besides the engineer commander. However, because the engineer commander was able to just print out those reavers to continue harassing Atosty's economy, stayed in that game. Meanwhile, Atosty not fully committing to the attack on the therxyy's base, not risking his commander, and losing the game for it. I think if that commander had committed to either that big attack with the Pyros or the attack with moderators well before that second Stinger was fully up, would have been looking at a very different game. But that wasn't what happened. therxyy fending off the siege, taking that game. So hope y'all enjoyed this. I'm Stuart98, and I'll see you guys in the next video.